So question 3, remember we're skipping question 2. In terms of question 3, again, you'll see I've put the 3 bullets in there, and we look at the leadership qualities and competencies required from a CSR perspective. Please just note that it's in the accounting profession, but let's be honest, it could be in any profession, but they give us nice little kernels of information in the case study. So when we look at leadership and responsibility, we know that from a corporate governance perspective, corporate governance starts and stops with your board of directors. And obviously, we know that the board of directors would appoint a managing director, and you then have managers with specific requirements, with specific responsibilities to shareholders, but also to CSR in general. So, from a leadership perspective, I think we know that leaders have to walk the talk. So we need policies, we need guidelines, we need procedures, but we also need leaders to actually acknowledge and provide budgets and support the different aspects of CSR. Right. So from a sustainability perspective, I think you'll hear words constantly, the idea of responsible leaders and responsible in terms of our CSR components. So in terms of the kind of leadership attributes that we're looking at, it's quite interesting that um, charismatic leadership tends to drive social responsibility. I think you guys will remember from your Mali lectures that charismatic leadership essentially are those individuals who have these intangible qualities that naturally attract people to them. We see tons of charismatic leaders, but in the business world, people like Richard Branson is considered very, very charismatic. It's also interesting in terms of that charismatic leadership is that it can't all be centered around one individual. That one individual walks the talk and provides the guidelines and the policies and the frameworks and the vision in terms of our CSR, but it's also about making sure that you have individuals who are empowered, who are able to make their own innovations and contributions to CSR. So when we look at the kind of attributes, it is based around teamwork. Most organizations will have some element of teamwork in CSR. We know that organizations will adopt community projects, and a team of individuals from the organizations will go and work in those. It's also a wonderful training ground in terms of future managers. And you can see respect and professionalism. I hate these kind of characteristics, but generally the kind of competencies we need are those individuals who have the courage to stand up to a board of directors to try and sell the idea of CSR and being good. It has to have a strong business sense because your CSR department has to be run as a formal business. We need to understand the costs, the benefits, the impact from a CSR perspective, and then passion and compassion. I'm not going to explain those. Right, and you can see there, the last one for me is possibly the most important one of all of that. It is about creating a vision and that vision leaving a lasting impression on the organization. In terms of benefits of the CSR program, I think there are a number of benefits. We have to accept that CSR is not just an add-on and, let's give money to somebody because it's going to make them happy. I think it is a concerted effort to impact in terms of people's lives, in terms of our employees, in terms of communities and societies in general. So when we look at why we would want to have CSR, there are a number of really common sense business reasons to do that. First of all, people want to work for organizations that are considered that to be good to communities. So it's the ability to attract new individuals. I also think the realization is when you work for an organization that impacts society very positively, it has a knock-on effect from a motivation and productivity perspective. It is also about efficiency. Remember, CSR is also about making sure that we recycle and look after the environment. Then, in terms of market share, communities generally want to do business with people who are considered the good guys. And if you do CSR properly, you are considered one of the good guys. And then lastly, it's about reducing your risk around sustainability. So the focus is very much on making sure that we don't have high insurance costs, that if we need to loan, we can get money because of our reputation from a CSR perspective. From a sustainability perspective, it makes common sense to have a positive impact in terms of the communities that surround the organization, that positively impacts the natural environment. So again, making sure that we are around in 10, 20, 30, and 40 years into the future. So when we look at what business communities do, it's also about solving social problems. It's about anticipating social problems. So when we decide on particular projects to implement in communities, we know where those burning points are, whether they're safety, whether they're health, whether it's schooling, whether it's running water, whether it is toilet systems. You want to have the most positive impact. And in terms of simple things such as training community members, you potentially create opportunities for jobs which will have an impact in terms of crime, etc. So the reality is that the responsibility from the organization will be rewarded in terms of those higher levels of support from those different parties that matter. Guys, and then, yeah, United Nations Sustainability Goals. This is quite a lot. And I think what you need to do is identify those pertinent ones. The sustainability goals essentially is just focusing on sustainable development across the planet. We know that we have one planet and we are using 2.5 planets worth of resources. The reality is that at some point we'll run out of planet, and running out of planet, in particular in a world where you have rising seawater levels, where you have ice caps melting, where you have insane weather patterns, we are going to run out of land for agriculture to house people. So what we try and do is to try and take these development goals and align them with our own and our own countries and our organizations' development objectives. Yeah, some of these are very ambitious. Yeah, dealing with poverty. Again, the impact in terms of silly things like community training projects, job creation options, all are important. Guys, when you learn these, only learn the major goals. Okay, don't worry about learning the targets and the responsibilities. You have to write it around the goals. And again, education, the same one. I think we know that in South Africa, education is a serious issue, and yes, education is compulsory to grade 9, but the reality is I think we have people that are left on the sidelines. Gender equality and promoting empowering women. I think when we look at boardrooms tend to be male, pale, and stale, and there is a desperate need to transform those. And then reducing child mortality. Yeah, I think the truth is, if we look at government hospitals and child mortality rates in government hospitals, it's something to be scared about, or sad about, rather. And then maternal health, obviously looking after pregnant moms. And you can see some of these. You would imagine that in 2024, we should have gotten rid of HIV, gotten rid of AIDS. Malaria shouldn't be the issue, but every so often there's a malaria breakout. And yeah, the truth is, simple things like malaria nets will make a massive difference. And then, yeah, environmental sustainability, using the environment now, but in a way that it will be around in the future, with the realization that climate change is a real thing, with the realization that that weather patterns will become more insane, and finding ways to reverse that. Silly things like going green would make a massive difference there.